Today we have Mr. Alok Arora talking to us about data privacy in HR process. Mr. Alok Arora is an experienced professional with over 17 years of experience in various sectors like manufacturing, retail, corporate, and service industry. He has worked for companies like Aditya Birla Group and Tata Motor Limited in various leadership positions, where he was responsible for managing risk and data privacy, big transformation projects, quality engineering, ISO standards, lean manufacturing, and continuous improvement initiatives. Currently, he is associated with CMEX HR Shared Service Center, Aditya Birla Group, as lead service excellence. He oversees four verticals: quality assurance, risk and data privacy, ISO standards, and voice of customer, and has implemented GDPR for HRSSC. He holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, an MBA from IIM Lucknow, and various other certifications, including CIPM, Six Sigma Green Belt, and ISO standards. He currently leads the Mumbai chapter of FDPPI. Mr. Alok, a very warm welcome. We're happy to have you here. Over to you.
Thank you, Manju. I think good evening, everyone. First of all, like to thanks FDPPI team for giving me the opportunity. I think the interaction started when Mr. Edepu had come for ISO audit at our site, and he introduced us to the FDPPI, and then we had an interaction with Navi sir, and then we started partnering, and I think the journey so far is good. We have been interacting at multiple front. So thanks FDPPI for giving this opportunity. So I will be talking about the data privacy in HR. I think this is a very common subject. Like in HR, everyone's in the industry, whether it's in manufacturing, legal, accounts, finance, have a interaction with HR in their entire job cycle, either day-to-day basis or at least twice in a year. One while doing the mid-year appraisal, and finally while doing the final appraisal and awaiting for the salary or the increment. These are minimum two interaction with everyone. Look forward to HR other than learning, intervention, talent, many other. But these are the two, and the pay, every month the pay slip, which everyone look forward to from the HR on time. So I will talk about my experience, learnings, which we have gone through in the HR Shared Service Center while implementing GDPR, implementing some of the best practices from the IT Act, or whether adopting the privacy information management standard. So we'll talk about some of the framework, some of the simple methodologies which we have taken ahead. And I think that may be useful for each one of you while you are going back, implementing those things in your workplace. Yeah. So starting with this, just a simple cartoon, let's say, okay, give us all your data. And the HR is saying, yeah, you have given the pre-existing condition. So I think when we join or when we fill any alt recruit form or go into the onboarding place, is like the every data we want to give, starting from a personal detail to the education detail, and sometimes even Aadhaar, PAN, passport, what more they capture from us. And it's the thing which we need to give since we have to get onboarded onto the organization. I think many of you can correlate, give the data. It's at a gunpoint to us and we have to give it. Yeah, so I think today key element which I will be covering is more from data privacy basic refresher quickly, data collection across employee lifecycle touchpoint, key privacy processes in the HR, which is very important, like personal data inventory, data archival retention, data protection impact assessment, DSRR, governance and reporting to DPO. Who has access to PI? Sometime while we doing in HR, we have so many partner vendor, we forgot where all my data is flowing, who all have access to my data. Then what are some of the HR responsibilities and general do's and don'ts which will help the organization in terms of securing, in terms of protecting, in terms of having a compliance to the various data privacy law. Yeah, quick refresher. I think we know these are the some GDPR guiding principle for us. I think the audience here is highly expert, but still just for quick refresher: lawfulness, transparency, fairness, storage limitation, purpose limitation, data minimization, accuracy of data, integrity and confidentiality, and finally accountability. And most of the common PIs which are collected are email address, driving license, birth date, photos we need to give, passport number, it is SSN, biometric at many places while entering, while doing punch in, punch out, our biometric data also get recorded. Medical information at time of joining as a defined frequency, HR give us you need to go for a medical, the report comes. So all those things are getting collected as part of a PI and SPI. So personal data in terms of HR is like primarily comes from provided data, observed data, derived data, and from third parties. So provided data is primarily as an employment form we give it to HR. Some of the observed data is like CCTV, cookies, training records is some of the observed data. Derived data is from the analytics. When we are part of organization, our performance rating, our learning record is get mutually run by AI, machine learning or manual analytics. And then we get some derived data on the attrition, on the performance. And third is the third parties, like our BGV partner, which we share information, they do the BGV for us, background verification. Another one is your medical record, which the organization has the tie-up. We go out, we do medical, we come back, and the data comes back to the organization in terms of report. So this is the entire landscape where the data comes as part of personal data in terms of 4: provided, observed, derived, and from third parties. Just a quick snapshot of employee personal data lifecycle, how it look like from hire to the exit. Application, then the recruiting happen, then the workplace, payroll, personal assessment consists of training, aptitude, skill, development, and finally employee move out because of whatever reason, maybe because of better job, exits, and finally their final full and final happen. So during this entire life cycle, there are various touch points where the employee have to share personal data and have a direct or indirect interaction with HR. Like while doing application, most of our data, entire CV, cover letters, reference, some of our test result, personality trait get captured. While recruiting, our contact information, dependent data, work contract, marital status, everything get into the system. While doing work, there are salary slips, there are job data, which primarily consist of your designation, business unit, location, all those data is being generated. And while doing as you grow in the organization, there are training, various assessment, skill development, which they take care. So basically, this is a 10-step framework, I think, which is primarily consisting of how while doing the implementation in HR, what the frame we should use. First important point is the visibility over personal information, which is primarily talks about your data inventory, data flow map. Second is privacy, organization, and relation. What are my data privacy policies and procedure? What is my organization structure? Third is your policies and process, which comprises of roles, responsibilities, standard and laws, DSSR, DPIAs. Privacy contract management primarily talk about entire vendor, supplier evaluation. Privacy monitoring and incident management talk about your breach response. Then your information usage is primarily into personal data inventory, access to who is having my access to the data. Then awareness become important as being in HR. And if we say compliance is one of the key pillar of the organization, then HR play a very important role in driving the training and awareness. So how well we are training, what are the various methodologies we are using to train our employee. Personal information security through various VAPT, security controls from ISO 27001, cloud security, depending upon the nature of organization, what all security control we are putting to secure our personal information. Then how we are driving governance, management review meetings, some audits, communication to stakeholder, independent audits and review. So this is an entire framework marked on step 1 to 10, which help us in implementing, in sustaining the data privacy in the HR, primarily into Plan, Do, Check Act. These are some of the sample data fields which you can correlate in your organization, also in any organization, which get collected during the process where are touch point. Like in personal data, some of the key one: name, address, biometric, medical detail, birth detail, bank, education. During the job is all about your department, company, title, what is your designation, experience. There are job bands in the organization. There are salary, hiring, movement. Training is all about your learning data, what you have trained, which are your skill set, development. Most of the organization have a talent data also, which primarily talk about, are you part of talent pool? Succession plan, very confidential data, which organization generate basis certain tools and technique. Career plan, strength and development. Most important, com data, very critical data for organization, that fixed com, variable comp, allowance. Then performance data is talking about your mid-year, annual review, rating, which is not a PII, but a confidential data from an organization perspective. And if it organization wants to secure this data, because they don't want someone knows someone rating, someone knows someone comment, someone knows someone document status. And last one is your position data, like job evaluation, head count, what is my head count, organization structure, salary plan. These are some of the sample data field which get collected at various touch point as we move in the organization. Irrespective of the function, HR will collect this data at each stage as you progress in your career life cycle, starting from hire to the departure. So the first step which primarily talk about is the data inventory and data flow map. So do we know from where all personal data is coming from? First thing, do we know internally how data flow within units of business? Do we know where all data fields are sent to IT, admin, housing, medical, financial, etc.? And all of this third party are bounded by appropriate contract. So four most important thing, I think, for us to have a personal data inventory. When we initiated the implementation for GDPR, I think the biggest challenge was to identify the PII, which all personal data inventory we are capturing, which all is flowing from which application to another application to which vendor, whether vendor has a contract. So this gives you the entire landscape, how much data is collected at each stage, how much data is processed by you, how much data is processed by the processor or you say sub processor in the entire value chain. And this help you know where all my are critical point, where data have to be safeguarded, which all are my touch point which needs to be secure in terms of whether contracting with the partner or putting a right set of control so that data is not falling into the any unauthorized user. Second most important, I think, privacy notice and consent. This have come up very big in the upcoming law also. So whenever, and I think a lot of discussion we see today, whether we have a forum FDPPI where Navi sir keep on posting some of the question to us to challenge our thought, answer those. So I think privacy consent is one of the important thing, and how well it is defined, how easy it is defined, how easy it is to understand by anyone in the organization. And is data subject clear on the privacy notice and the consent? Have we informed our employees about the purpose? Have our employees aware where they reach out to exercise their employee data privacy rights? I think consent is something which we have done while doing the implementation. We have drafted the consent with the help of a legal team, then roll out through some online portal. So whenever any new joiner come, they can give the consent online and process ahead. Then data subject right request. I think these are some of the rights which we have picked from GDPR, considering GDPR as the base framework to start with. And as a best practice also, although India law is not there, IT Act is there, but to get more objectivity to the privacy law, we try to implement right to access, right to rectify, right to be informed, right to portability, right to object, automated decision making, and training and awareness to the user that these are right which you can have during your tenure in the organization. Once you leave the organization, what all data can be given, what all data can be purged, which all data organization will retain. Because if you talk about salary data, other data, they need to be there with the organization for 8+ years for tax liability. Some of the data HR can purge, some of the data they have to store. So basis that we have a framework which drive data subject right request, easy to answer. That person come, they can raise a query, someone will answer it, and that request will be serviced within the time frame. Data archival and retention, like for how long we are holding the data. I think this is the biggest challenge in the industry today. which I have interacted with multiple of my friends also across the industrial domain. So today everyone is facing a challenge. What is the right timeline to hold the data, especially for an exit employee in India when they leave the organization, whether at an applicant stage, whether you talk about at the job stage, or because of whatever reason the person has exited, for how long we are keeping the data and what type of data organization needs to keep. Every data like training record may not be required for 8 years. Some simpler record, job data, salary data may be required for longer duration. So I think we need to have a timeline clearly defined in terms of data archival and retention, and not only just to PII and SPI. I think this cascade across the entire chain, whether it's talk about not only HR but also the customer data, vendor data. You talk about your operation data, whether we are tracking the numbers of production produced in a month, power cost, financial cost. So every data in the chain has to have some archival retention. Some data may have infinite time, like some company circulars may have to be kept for the entire time, because this shows how many circulars were rolled out, which transaction happened. Some operation data may require for 5 years. After 5 years, you may purge it, depending upon the process, depending upon the uses. So this is an important aspect, not only in HR, but also in other processes, data archival and retention. Then we have the impact assessment and privacy by design. I think we had a lot of discussion on this in our past sessions also. When we are doing any new product, any new process, we should go through a DPIA. So as a part of process, there is a screening checklist, I think, which Adepu sir has also helped us out draft in helping us out in forming those, in helping us out in implementing those, some of the things which he has been connected with us, giving us input. So I think this personal data, what all data is getting collected and what all type of controls are placed, how the personal data subject right can access, is archival retention in place, is contract in place, are some of the things which data protection, impact assessment and privacy by design answer. I think this is just the theory part. I will skip this slide. Then comes the governance. I think this is very important as an HR, because lot of transaction, lot of data. So how we are governing it and how we are reporting back to DPOs, because DPO at the topmost level may not be aware of what all is happening in the HR day-to-day life. So some of the parameter as a best practice, we should start reporting to DPOs. Although people may say India law is not there, why you want formal report to DPO, but as a best practice, some of the parameter can be identified. These are some indicative parameter, like number of data right request process, SLA adherence to the data right, number of DPIA done, number of data breaches, customer contract, do they have a DPA? Customer contract are there in place or not, or vendor contract. These are some of the indicative parameter which the organization can start depending upon the nature of organization, and a summary at a quarterly frequency or a monthly or a half yearly can be reach out to DPO and the senior leadership in the organization. Then comes the vendor management. This is the tricky one. Whenever we want any job to be done as an HR, like from an ID card printing to the annual day celebration, to the employee reward and recognition, some of the gift part, even the courier services. So how well they are governed with the contract, how well they are managing our data. Because if you see in the world, most of the breaches are happening with the third parties. At our premises, we may be secure. We are holding our data secure, but is our third parties securing the data we wanted them to secure? Sometimes they don't understand what is privacy. They don't understand what are the laws say, but in terms of business also, they also sign some agreement. And then they later on ask, okay, tell me what is all this about GDPR is, or what is all this about data privacy agreement you are talking about me? Because in a hurry to get the business, they may sign. And this with certain, the 6-hour reporting timeline has impacted many of the partners, because this become the qualifying criteria. Will you able to report in 6 hours if any breach incident, security incident happen? So I think this become a critical part. And I think to this, two parameters which we think are most important. One is the vendor evaluation and clearance process. So established vendor evaluation should be there in the organization. How you are identifying the partner, 3 partner minimum as a best practice. Doing a detailed privacy and security assessment depending upon the nature of work, A category, B category, C category. So A category is something who deals in your PI, SPI, B is only PI, not SPI. C is something which is your normal admin vendor, food provider, some normal guy who's giving you stationery, coming for office repair, all those things. So depending upon that, a contract has to be in place which governs the privacy and confidentiality both. So this is the biggest miss which I saw personally while interacting with some of my friends, colleagues in the other industry. Contract as a term with respect to privacy still is not that strong. And specifically confidentially, most of the contract you will see, but data protection clause are still evolving. Still people are not sure. Many local partners still don't adhere to it, and that signing it off is something a bigger challenge. So I think this is something which to have a strong vendor management, these two processes will help, primarily the evaluation, clearance process, and the contract management. Then last, I think, is all about employee awareness, which primarily cover multiple factors like e-learning, classroom training, quiz, handbooks, town hall communication. How as an HR, I am keeping myself as well as my employees updated, because with the law in place, that world is changing very fast. And the technology, every organization wants to adopt technology today. And no one knows inside the technology what is happening. Data goes in, then it's a black box. Data get processed inside the black box. Data comes out. So where that black box is secure, safe, protected, guarded, no one get access to that, only the relevant people. So how we are training people, how we are making them aware, where are their data stored, why we are doing this, so that tomorrow when we have a law which is already in the draft stage, in discussion, may come soon, people are ready. And HR, I think, will play a critical role when this law will come up in India, because they will maybe the driver, because they hold the entire employee data as one of the key factor. There are vendor data, there are customer database, which will also be important because a lot of customer data has to be managed. But within, from an employee perspective, I think HR will play a critical role and a major role for implementation of the upcoming data privacy law, as well as while doing the GDPR compliance, because employee data becomes very critical and it has almost all the PISP information which HR is gathering. Some common HR responsibilities as a best practice in terms of data request. While they are requesting any data, while they are collecting, we should follow the privacy principle. Whenever any process change happen, we should report back to our privacy SPOC, do DPIA. In case of any breach, incident, even a small incident, I think as a best practice should be reported to the entire organization or to the relevant people. Data access and sharing, how the data is shared, how the data is accessed through data flow map, personal data inventory, data storage, where my data is getting storage, it is encrypted. General responsibility, if someone asks for data, we should question why they want this data, because sometimes by virtue of having a data, we say we are the data owner, let's do this, let's give the data to someone. And once someone get the data for certain purpose, considering the know-how, they may use the data for multiple purpose, which they are not authorized to use, because they have taken the data for certain purpose, for the certain job. So I think this is something important which HR as a team, HR as an individual should take care of some of the responsibilities. Some general do's and don't. I think what to do is primarily obtain the minimum data. That's something which HR should work on, because it's a journey. Ensure appropriate data sharing agreement are in place, because a lot of partners are there with HR, whether it's admin, HR, lot of data like travel. Most example is the travel portal. Every organization have a travel portal. Those travel portal have your entire data history, travel history, your personal data, your passport numbers. Then how those data is secure, how data is accessed, who access this data, is this data being not used for any marketing purpose? Because when you talk about these partners, they sometimes may use your data for marketing purpose also without telling you. So how this is being taken care? Participate in induction, training program, awareness, raising session on data privacy. What we should not use, we should not disclose our password publicly. We should not transfer any file to any unauthorized user. We should not click any spam email. I think phishing is the second most or third most in the list where the breaches happen. Someone will send some email, lottery email, you have won so and so much of amount, and people fall for it. And I think I have read some memes about it also. The Diwali email is there to win 5,000 voucher, and after clicking that, person is doing the e-learning on information security for the 5th time. So I think we should be taking care from the spam perspective, from the phishing perspective. And I think these are getting stronger and stronger. You have one technology to stop it, they come up with 10 more ways. Recent example, I think SDFC. I'm not aware what was the case, but SDFC, as being the SDFC customer, I'm getting so many messages. Your account will get blocked. Update KYC. Your account is getting blocked now. Update KYC. Daily 5-6 messages were used to come. So they always come up new way of spamming you since you are into your day-to-day work. Sometimes you say, oh, my account will get blocked. You get worried, you get tense, and you start clicking those links and submitting the data. So I think we have to be conscious while reading such messages. And that consciousness, HR will play a role by continuously training the employees. If we continuously train our employees, they may aware and it become in their subconscious mind. It's like while we drive a car, in the initial stage, we always remember, okay, gear 1 is this way, gear 2 this way, gear 3 this way, brake, accelerator, and clutch. But once we learn that process, it become into our memory, muscle memory. And then we are like, okay, we are talking also and driving. So I think with privacy, this has to be the case, and it has to go into the employee DNA. Whenever they are working on any HR processes, it has to in the muscle memory. This much of data is required. I will destroy the data when the purpose is over. I will store the data in a secure way, and I will not share data with any unauthorized user. So this was all about the how data privacy in HR play a role. What all from my personal expertise have done actual hands-on, which I have tried to bring out in this session. And I think since it's a learning session, maybe a lot of question can come, we can discuss, we can jointly answer each other question so that we learn from each other. So I think over to you, Manju, for any questions and answer session. And Navi sir, Ramesh sir, Guna, do you want to add anything more being associated with the privacy processes and so many things?
Alok, this is Ramesh here. Thank you very much for kind of a crisp session, I would say. Are you using any tools for DSR, data subject access request?
So not any tool. We evaluated couple of tool, Rameshji. One is your most common OneTrust, which we try to evaluate. Then Exterio is something which we evaluate. So as of now, we are not using any tool. We are trying to do through employee self-service way, at least the data request access part of it.
Okay.
We have an in-house development where we try to manage the data request through a ticketing tool, where the user can raise a ticket and we service as per the defined SLAs.
Because I saw this as one of your metric, if I'm right, as part of the dashboard, right?
Right.
So two things we are talking about. One, adhering to the SLA set by you internally, or you call it as OLA.
Yeah.
And also it should be in line with the GDPR's requirement, right?
Right. So I think 30 days is the requirement for GDPR.
Okay. Yeah, so, I got it.
So we have our 15 days set up for us being a HR share service. But if you talk about controller, because as an HR servicer, we play a dual role.
I got it. So second,
few business and controller for our employees.
Sure. Second question, I would be interested in finding, listening from you on the vendor management, right? Because HR plays a kind of vital role in terms of having lots of vendors.
Right.
Next to, if I'm right, admin, if I'm right.
Right.
How do you handle? I got your point, what you said. Probably I will be having a kind of criteria and checklist to evaluate before them and categorize them into categories, as you mentioned, A, B, C, whatever. Based on that, criticality is being as identified, and then you will be going. Do you also audit the vendors at the end of the day at regular intervals?
Yeah. So like I say in the governance in the slide, in the initial slide, so we audit A category vendors.
Hmm.
And always I think the recommendation will be, we see anyone in HR can't audit the hundreds of vendors, because there are so many vendors which are there, from your medical BGV to the car service provider to Quest to Travel to the final food delivery guy, also stationary guys also. So we need to identify which are my critical, which I should audit at least once in a year or at least once in a half year, and which is second most critical, which I can live as of now. And C category is something which, if not audited, doesn't impact from an privacy perspective. But from an operation perspective, there is another way which we do a vendor evaluation on a defined set of checkpoint, where we don't audit, but we take the self-evaluation from a vendor and then give them certain rating. So that at least the B and C category, which we are not physically auditing, we audit them basis the document shared by them. Not a physical site visit, but at least through the document. Okay, you are doing this, these are your control defined, share us the latest report. Okay, if this latest report have 5 findings, is those 5 are closed. So with those type of audit we are doing and publishing one scorecard to the partner, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Alok, I had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shared service center, are you only serving locations and entities in India, or entities outside India within the group are also being served by you? And in the process, is there any transfer of data of international, particularly from EU into India for processing? A lot of multinational, multi-locational entities, particularly
Right.
outside India, try to take advantage of the India cost factor and centralize payroll and centralize reimbursements, all of these things.
No, I think we primarily servicing India, sir, in terms of the HR processes.
Okay.
Few processes like learning is something which the overseas business take, but primarily end to end is for Indian operation as of now.
Okay. So
Because I know there are a lot of advantage also, but once you bring a lot of things, there are a lot of challenges also from a Europe perspective, especially the international location and so many laws. Every nation now has a law.
Yeah.
So as of now, primarily we servicing India.
Okay. Yeah, because we did happen to audit a couple of IT companies where they did have European employees and everything was also being processed in India, and they went through a lot of ups and downs, okay, in terms of agreements and international transfer approvals and all those things.
Right.
Further to this, I would also like to know more, drilling a little more on the vendor part that Ramesh was asking.
Yeah.
These quite a few small and medium organizations, when we go and audit, we find many gaps there. At times, just curious to see how things are at the larger entities, particularly the kind of contractual clauses and the enforcement of those contractual clauses that you have with vendors. Typically, what will happen is when you go and audit and you find certain clauses missing, you point out and they'll typically go to the vendor and say, "Hey, boss, my audit chal raha hai." So that fellow will sign up something and say, "Okay, fine, if it is required by time, fine." That's what happens.
Correct.
But clauses like reporting back to you if the vendor has had any suspected or actual data breaches, and also evaluating their own privacy policies, whether they offer the similar kind of protection to the personal data as your organization policy and your controls offer to the data that is there in your company. Where are you in terms of those evaluations on a real terms basis? I mean, as you say, compliance is not, as I say, clearing your audit does not mean you're compliant. So where really would your assessment be in terms of implementing those kind of controls?
Right. So I think that for vendor management, we started first with cleaning of our old contract as a process. First thing what we did, we studied all our contract. Like there are many contract within HR which are set up like year backs. People are not even aware the services are still continuing. That's the first approach. Second approach we took, we defined the vendor management process, categorizing our vendor into A, B, C category. From an HR perspective, I know A from a manufacturing, if you go, it's primarily on the cost part of it, ABC. Yeah, if you go into manufacturing factor, they start categorizing ABC as the cost.
Yeah.
Like A is something, B is less cost, C is the less inventory. So their ABC definition is more from the inventory perspective. But we try to formalize that because that process is very good, categorizing partner into 3 categories. We did it from a PI and SPI perspective.
Okay.
So what my PI and SPI is flowing to A category, B category, and C category. Then we had
So you mean ABC means from point of view of the risk that is there to the organization or the maturity of their processes?
So this is from the risk to the organization, or the organization is sharing the PI and SPI.
So the less mature the vendor is, you would be in C category. The more mature vendor would be in A category.
A category. Like for example, my payroll partner.
Yeah, right.
If payroll is outsourced by any organization, then payroll becomes the A category because you are sharing your entire employee data with them.
Okay. Okay.
And something your partner similar to like your office repair or someone who comes in office to repair AC.
Yeah.
Maybe a C category partner from an admin perspective, because nothing, no PI is sharing, they come, you maintain a record, they come, they go out.
Okay.
But maybe a risk perspective may be high. We don't know who is coming. Is the person right? Is the hiring right? Is the background verification done by that organization? He may not come in, do a theft, do some wrong thing in the office. So after doing this, we decided to sit with legal, because legal plays an important role in contracting. So legal basis, this ABC has given a certain standard template. With A category of partner, these are the standard clause, whether it's talk about confidentiality, you talk about data privacy, addendum there, whether you talk about indemnity. So all those clauses they build for each category of my partner. Third step, this was from the contracting perspective, which we safeguard. Now, if new partner is getting onboarded, we have carved out the DPIA process, which primarily comprises of 2 aspects. One is the security, one is the privacy. So there are certain gateways which we have defined as a minimum basic. In terms of my A category partner, the score is criteria is defined. Okay, 80% and above A category partner, if I am doing any PI SPI transaction, that 80% score has to be there. Any B category partner, which I am doing relatively PI, not SPI, 60 to 70% score needs to be achieved. Then there is a third category partner, which is C category partner. I can live with around 30% score on that checklist also. So that checklist become my guideline. And then basis that we try to onboard any partner into our system, and then do a detailed DPIA, which primarily talk about what is my requirement to them and whether they can deliver that. Classic case, I think certain, many of the people here would have go back to their partner, adhering to those certain 3 major guidelines, like the clock sync, having a log for 180 day, reporting back to the organization in 6 hours. 3 major. These were 3 major, like to have it on the ground, any partner conversation, and you inform certain, this is my CISO or the single point of contact. So I think with this 3-4 step, we are trying to manage the partner in the HR vertical.
Yeah, Alok, this is Ramesh.
Yeah.
Good to hear from our FDPP award winners. I think maybe this is the first of that. Is good to hear, and I think thanks for sharing a practical experience of how when you have been doing and implementing it. I think that makes very interesting. Rather extending kind of your work. Maybe I don't mean to put more work on your side. And again, I know it's Navi sir as a passion. Is it possible to try with the DTS score model? What we have FDBPI, the data trust score.
Yeah.
So would you mind trying it out as a pilot at least? Because I know that's something which Navi sir is looking at passionately to go out. Just wanted to check or maybe get your thoughts on that.
Sure. I think data test score is also our critical point. We have been discussing internally. We were just debating what time we should actually go into data test score. Is that time right, or is it still we need to do something more? So I think I will come back. We initially had the plan to do, but somehow we thought let's wait for some more time. Let the India law may come up, or we have been implementing something as a part of our journey. So let's implement few more critical processes. Let the process mature. Because that on your privacy maturity model, we try to gauge where we are. So I think it is in the plan. So surely we love to pilot it. I think we can connect offline and discuss what and how of the data trust score and take it ahead.
Yep, appreciate. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Adappu sir, would you like to add something?
Nothing, Manju.
Okay.
I know where Mr. Alok is working.
I know, Adappu sir, and we have the first interaction in our ISO audit. I remember that.
Yes. Nice to have Alok on our meeting. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Adappu sir. I think it's your connect which bring us to the FDPPI, and I think we have been learning a lot from all the experts here.
Nice to know that.
If we have time and nobody else has any question, can I ask one more?
Yeah,
Sure,
just an
sure.
update.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you go back to that slide on the personal data? You had indicated different types of personal data, no?
Sure. This one, sir.
Now, prior to that, I think one table kind of a thing you had.
This one. This one.
Before that.
Okay. This.
You make it bigger. I'm not able to
Sure.
see that. Now, where you said the personal data. No, okay. Now this data inventory. How are you approaching creating the PI data inventory? Okay, suppose I ask you, how do you identify a data set belonging to one particular data element?
Yeah. So we have, sir, our HRMS, which we use for the employee life cycle, and we know what all fields we are collecting. So this start from a recruitment stage.
Now, 1 minute.
Yeah.
For employees, you have the employee ID as the core identity.
Right.
So everything else you can build around that.
Right.
Okay. So even if there is a similar name or initials, you still have an employee ID, which is a core identity.
Core ID, yeah. And for organization, employee ID differ from
for public, is there a core identity?
Like for public, it become the no, I didn't get your point. Like, sir, what you want to say for public? For internal, it's my employee ID, which become
you take the data of a member of public. Of course, if your company is handling PII of outsiders, non-employees. Okay. Now you have the name, you have the address, you have XYZ, some 6-7 elements, maybe more. Now, tomorrow another 2 elements come, which could be related to the same person. You do not know.
Right.
Now, how do you tag that new data elements into the earlier data set? And in that process, what will be the critical parameter which you take for identification? Suppose say Alok, okay. Alok has bought a car. Okay. There may be several Aloks. Now, this car number, registration number has to be allocated to one of the Aloks.
Right.
Now, how do you tag that to the right person?
Yeah. So I think, sir, for employee, this is very clear. Like the employee ID becomes the core identity when the person is onboarded.
Yeah.
Now coming back to the person before onboarding, they are an applicant to the organization. And applicant, they are at various stage. Someone will just come and share your resume to the job portal. I am attaching my resume, please see. Someone will come, tag themselves to certain position which are open on the job portal. Like someone sees there is a manufacturing engineer position opening in the Delhi region in the so and so plant. They will tag their detail there. Similarly, they do the tagging while doing the applying for the position. And once their resume gets shortlisted as part of a recruitment process, they have been given one form which they need to fill with the basic of information like name, email ID, phone number, and those are authenticated with the multi-factor authentication. And while filling this form as a part of the recruitment process, they get some reference ID. So if Alok A is doing that thing, they get one reference ID which is tagged to Alok A. And the profile is created for certain amount of time. And after certain time, this profile will get inactive and will finally get deleted if the person doesn't access after the certain amount of time. Similarly, now after certain 3 months, the employee gets shortlisted and now they are asked to upload 3 more education documents. Now with the same email ID and same reference, which we have tagged him in the initial stage, will be used as an identity to him. Whether there are so many people with same name are there in the applicant holder, but this applicant has a unique identification ID with the phone number, email ID, and the reference ID which get generated in the process. Though these 3 differentiator help us to identify the non-recruiter in the organization. Until
you're looking at a combination of 3 parameters to specifically identify the person.
Right. Because sometimes person doesn't give me email ID. They just give the phone number as a quick. So phone number is something which we say, okay, we have a consent, you give the consent, you are giving phone number.
Then is it either or? There is either email or mobile or something like that?
Yeah, no, sir. Mobile is mandatory because we have to have a multi-factor authentication.
Okay, in that case, can you not have mobile as the core identity for
that is there because to log in that mobile becomes my first gateway to enter into the system.
Okay. Now, earlier, the ISPs, mobile service providers, had a system of reissuing a mobile number, particularly the prepaid. I don't know whether they have not stopped it. They must be continuing that even now in a prepaid, is it not?
They might be.
So, in which case, mobile number will not be a core identity.
Yeah, it is one of the process. Then it is supplemented by the reference ID which was generated along with email ID.
Now, this reference ID, what you said, it is unique to the company, your company.
Correct, but it is unique to that person also, sir, who is applying.
Correct. And it is a unique ID issued by the company to that individual. So, is it not the better core identity to be retained, around which you tag his declared email address, declared phone number, etc.?
2-way, declared phone number as well as email address, because that MFA happen at both places, not at one place. So the code will go on both, different code. So authentication happened with the email ID also as well as with the phone number.
Now, I will give another use this thing. You have one such this thing. In the newspaper, you see a newspaper, XYZ. Okay, he has either good or bad, whatever. He has, let us say, graduated, has been awarded something, or he has met with an accident, whatever is the information which is there. Now, I would like to tag that to the personal ID, personal information already with me. First of all, I have to see whether this person is the same person who is there in my PII list. And if so, who is the right person to whom I have to give this, attach this new information which has arrived now. That is where I feel core identity becomes an important criteria. Now, how do you handle it?
So I think, sir, today we go with email ID, phone number, and the ID which we get generated during the process of recruitment.
That is for your employees. I'm assume that you are like a Twitter kind of a social media company. Public are becoming subscribers to a service.
Today we are not, sir, so I may not be in a position to answer that. Today we have only two category of employee. One is
Applicants.
three categories.
Yeah,
One is
applicants.
ex-employee, one is my employee, and
Ah.
one is my applicant.
Applicant, onboarded employees and ex-employees.
Ex-employees.
Okay, so you have the reference number before recruitment. After recruitment, of course, he gets a firm employee.
One ID, and then ex-employee.
It will continue.
Correct. It continues for the ex-employee because they have an alumni portal where they can see
So
their.
why I am saying this is, I am suggesting that every company should develop their own reference ID as the core ID and link everything else to that, which is a universal way of having a core identity.
Right.
Employees, okay, you can still continue to do with employee ID, there's no problem. But for organizations for handling public data.
Public data, right.
Because information keeps coming at different points of time. Today I get only name and email address. Tomorrow I get other information about his health or something like that. Now I have to attach that to the specific data set. I may make a mistake if I am not able to identify the correct person. I want to solve that particular situation.
Yeah, sir. I think it's a good way because I think the learning from the employee part can be taken because the employee life cycle is entire around at one email ID, one Purnat ID or employee ID.
Correct.
Entire life cycle. If someone get that ID and they enter into the employee system of any organization, then entire history can be out for that employee.
Yes.
Everything. So that core ID, I think that's a good suggestion for the public industry also, which are dealing with a lot of customers, especially the companies which are having customer database, having the Twitter account, how they can monitor employee through one single identity.
Some of the people subscribe to the service now, they will actually withdraw from the service tomorrow. The app will be deactivated. Then after 1 month, they will come back. Now, the PII of his first subscription, then deactivation, then reactivation, they are all metadata or whatever is that, which needs to be kept with me.
And as a process, I think after a certain time, as an Indian mentality, I will say, we don't want to delete data. That's something as an Indian we always see, whether it's all
that in public, this thing you have to keep it for 5 years. No, that is a certain guidance. Okay, so the moment a person subscribes to an app, that data will remain for see, if it's a financial this thing, it has to be 5 years. Otherwise, at least 180 days, it has to be there.
And after that, it needs to be purged from the system. And that
from the system, yes.
Yeah. So I think purging is something which I have seen across industry, whether it's manufacturing, retail. Purging is still something evolving. Maybe people are still thinking, if I purge this data, what will happen? Even the operation data, people are not purging, keeping the 10-year trend line and the baseline of data, saying, someone may ask me, what is my accuracy 10 years back? What is my efficiency of machine 10 years back and today? Same machine. But ideally in an ops world, it's 5 years. Trend line is good enough for 5 years, how you are performing. So I think purging is something across industry, people have a fear if they delete the data.
Do you have a policy for that data? I call it as data retention policy because data purging is same as data retention in a way. Okay. So there should be a data retention policy, which should actually have include the legitimate rights, like what you said. Up to 5 years, I require it for some purpose, but beyond 5 years also, I may require it for some other purpose, which is a legitimate interest. Only thing is, it is to be documented. Perhaps that data set has to be secured differently, removed from the active space and put in an archive or something like that. Or it is kept with a reference but encrypted and used only when it is required. Something
like that. Absolutely.
Okay. I think Subraidu had some other questions. No, you are.
I think you're speaking on me.
Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think nothing specific, really more of a conversational chit chat. say one thing is, do you also do some HR analytics kind of a thing? Are you required to do some HR? How do you balance out purpose limitation with analytics in doing that? Because at times many HR people want to say that they have to do different kind of analytics, which kind of people do well, which kind of people don't do well, from source here, source there, and also those kind of analytics. Although I guess in the employment context, the restrictions on personal data processing are not that stringent, right? But still, how do you go about balancing analytics vis-a-vis purpose limitation,
Correct. So I think it's analytics is not from AI or ML engine today, what we are doing.
Yeah.
It's more of a dashboarding, because I know it is not nothing which the automated decision is the machine learning or AI is giving to me. Okay, this is the performance. Now you take a decision. So what we do today, see, we are not primarily into as a HR service. This is part of our service, more of a reporting type. So we give back the data back to business, being a processor. So they come up.
Do you obtain consent from the employees for running these analytics? Because some laws say that analytics the purpose is a different one, and it's a different purpose. You need to go back to them and take consent once again.
So the consent has the inbuilt key. They will data will be used by HR for so and so purpose. But as a HR shared service, we don't run any analytics on any data. We give the data back to the business, because we are a processor to my businesses. They say give my data back, I give the data back in certain dashboard form, simpler form, not just the bulk of data, but maybe some data cut. Okay, this is the age wise, this is the performance wise. Then they may run their analytics, do their detailing, insight, all those things business do for their employee. As a central governance body, as a shared service, we don't run analytics much.
Do you do this even for applicant data and not just employee data?
Not for applicant.
No further question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Engaging discussion, and because we want to see what the practices are in the industry. When you go to audit, you get a stock responses, right? So the real view you don't get.
Correct. I think these audits are also helping us a lot these days.
So just want to update on the remitter's question, like the tools, data privacy tools. No, so the popular tools are security.ai and the OneTrust. Most of the people are using this one only. I think security.ai is like more powerful. If there is a huge data is there to process or want to analyze, then security.ai to be used. OneTrust is have some limitations, like the data size is less, only we can use it. Then security.ai use more into AI techniques, and you can properly like prepare DPIA, Arora, all these things, and consent management, cookie management, all these things are done through AI. So,
okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Alok, your talk was very informative. I learned a lot. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Very crisp and enjoyable.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alok, for a very detailed yet crisp and informative session. It introduced, I mean, for the non-starters, it was really informative, and for others, it was thought-provoking. Thank you very much for the session. We look forward to more sessions from you, more participation from you.